Like many, I am a chronic overthinker. And I also wanted to make a business. This was an awful combination for a ton of reasons. So I decided to do the unthinkable. I decided to underthink. And it all started with an exercise tracking app. Now I know what you're thinking. Wow, that is such an original idea. Listen, this was the most saturated thing I could pick for programming. Everybody and their mother has probably made an exercise tracking app, and everybody and their dog has probably charged for it. But me, I don't care. I'm underthinking. I'm gonna do this knowing that most businesses fail. I might as well just get that first one out of the way. Of course, even with these sorts of standards that I set for myself, you'll find it's just not that easy, and I still had doubts, even knowing that I was just making it to make it. The start of this was actually just learning Ruby on Rails. I started with what I call the 12-12 process. It involved creating a project in 1 month, another project in 2 weeks, another in 1 week, and then another in 2 days. Most of my projects were pretty solid. I feel like I learned a lot of things through each project. And the funniest thing was that this one that I worked on, Sesh, the workout tracking app, was the real disaster out of all 4 of the projects. That was because I expected to do it in 2 days. And of course, like any normal human, I failed to do that. And thankfully I didn't beat myself up. Instead, I decided, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with this. Completely normal people style. I'm going to work on this when I get the chance to work on it. If that means daily, then sure. If I miss a week, so be it, whatever. At this point, I started to understand what sorts of things I wanted out of the project. And the first and foremost was that I was not gonna do any sort of customer validation. We call this business suicide, but I call it learning. Yes, I did not talk to anybody except for just people in my friends and family who mostly were not even the target audience. This was 100% about the friends we made along the way and nothing more. If I made any sort of profits off of it, then so be it. That would be awesome, but I was not going to count on that. Not after what I just told you. This was definitely the most innocent part of the project. It was the most fun part. It was new and exciting. The biggest technical problems that I had were just unit conversions and database structure and all sorts of stuff like that. Really, the biggest non-technical problem that I faced was more interpersonal and interpersonal. Let me explain. For context, when I started the 12-12 process, I also created a Discord to share with friends and family. Basically, what I want to do is just have devlogs along with actual calls with them where I could show them the results of the things that I had created. This was more of a casual thing. It was fun to just share my projects, but I figured with this new one, it would generate some interest. I did share the project where I went into detail about how I wanted to create a workout tracking app that is a paid product, which was completely out of my comfort zone at the time. There was a resounding crickets. Now, I know nobody owes me anything, and that's fine. I don't think anyone should ever say, like, that's cool, man, when they don't really mean it. It's stupid. But even still, like, it did kind of hurt a little bit. It kind of didn't tickle me exactly. No, it didn't. I hear that this is a common theme for a lot of people that do things independently. So it was something I just kind of filed in the back of my mind, and honestly, it ended up not really being much of an issue because people started showing interest later on once I was able to make more progress and show what I was making, as opposed to just saying, hey, this is a thing I'm making. You gotta be able to just root for yourself when you're doing something like this, because people have their own lives. They don't have the mental energy to keep pretty much telling you to stay on track. It's not like school, it's not like university, it's not like your job. It's a completely different feeling, and it's something that's still new to me. At this point, I put my alpha on the internet for all to see. It was a production server. I received a ton of feedback from friends and family on my Discord, which, like I had mentioned before, there was more activity once I started to share. And, you know, it was just things that I could reword, or things that had to do with really awkward UI. There was also problems that I personally had with the project that people also vocalized. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. Like, this is something that I really should be focusing on to try to fix. Essentially, the whole thing was refine, smooth out the rough edges, all that sorts of stuff. This was also a great time for me to take some creative liberties. The biggest thing was the charts. I love charts when it comes to your own workout data, so we had to put the charts in there. Then I worked on getting the ordering working for the sessions. Then there was the disaster. So it had been about 3 months of me collecting workout data, and it was incredibly helpful. Firstly, as somebody who is trying to understand what somebody would look at while they're tracking their workout data, but also it's actually helping me understand how I'm doing at the gym. So that's a huge win-win. But there was a point where I needed to add time zones to users. Basically, the problem was that if a user decided to log an exercise at a certain time, what would happen is it would show them the time in UTC, regardless of where they were in the world or what their time zone was. But basically, I needed to get those time zones in so that way people could see the correct time reflected in their UI. What ended up happening though was when I updated the database, I took for granted the fact that it was seemingly simple of an operation, and I moved it over to production pretty quickly, a little quicker than I probably should have. And all of my workout data got wiped on production. All of it just gone. The whole thing. Wow, that sucked. I actually wanted to demo it with a fitness trainer that I know. That happened like the day before. Really, really rough. I knew I wanted to back up the data, but just seeing it happen to me, I was like, okay, well, I definitely do not want this to happen to anybody else. So we are putting a backup system in here. What I ended up doing was using Lightstream, which is just a free open source thing that you can use to stream your SQLite data over to a cloud storage bucket. That was not terribly hard to do. The problem was like learning how to actually get my database to reset back to a specific point in time. That was really tough and was only really just the beginning, because in Act 3 you'll see that I had to learn Stripe and there was tons of things slowing me down. Act 3 was the start of the biggest slowdown in the entire project, and there was a million reasons for it. At this point, my commits slowed down a ton. The first reason for this was because I created this YouTube channel. The other reason was that I was learning Stripe, and Stripe was incredibly difficult. I didn't automate this. I am not proud of it, but I feel like if I had automated, it would have taken me 12 months instead of 8 months. So here I am. And lastly, Steam was running low, just overall. When you're running a marathon, there's a point where you're just exhausted. Combined with trying to work with all the other things that were slowing me down, and also just the self-doubt, like I have to play so much catch-up if I want to be competitive, or is it even worth doing this? Like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. All of those thoughts got stronger towards the end, especially when I knew I was doing something as vulnerable as charging for a service on the internet. This is where I renamed the project from Sesh to Re-Rack. Much cooler name in my opinion, at least, and also Sesh is taken by another workout tracking app. Like I said, everybody and their dog. But honestly, I pulled through. I got through it. I got Stripe working. I got the project not sucking. I shared it with some people. And now it's on the internet. It works. It charges money for a service. And I'm proud of it. One morning, 8 months ago, I asked myself, what if I could? You know, I could give up, right? But that's old news. I've done that so many times before. It's kind of stupid. It's exhausting. I mean, why do that again? I mean, start from zero again on some other project? Like, no, it's nonsense. That's kind of what kept me going. Most people, they don't get this far from 0 to 1. So that's where I got to. It's the necessary first step to the next big thing, right? At least I hope so. So you're wondering, did I feel victorious? Did I feel like $1 million afterwards? No, I didn't. But I did feel relieved. That was one thing I felt. I was able to just sit back and be like, yes, I did this. I finally finished this. And it's exhilarating. It really is, knowing that you do have a product out there. Like, not a lot of people can say that. So there is that. It's a little exciting. After thinking about it for a few days, I can admittedly say it's a little exciting. I got to understand how to make a digitally breathing thing. I got to communicate with people and figure out what it's like to iterate on a project based on feedback. I was able to just see the doubt, the awful, terrible thoughts that go through your mind, especially towards the end of a project when things are just dragging along and it's that last 10%. I got to experience all of those things, and that's incredibly valuable. Anyhow, that's really about it. I've got some friends and family who are actually paying for the project, and I greatly appreciate that. Others are giving lots of feedback, and it's great because I could just kind of add whatever I want to the project or edit whatever I want in the project at any time. So great for, I guess, the reviews, right? If I ever have that, if I ever have a concept of something like that. But yeah, Re-Rack will be linked in the description. And like I've told you before, nobody owes me anything. Same goes for you too. Go make something cool.